really want to talk about initiation and how it was the experience because it's really difficult to talk about this. And we know this because it is a unique experience. It's very private, very intimate to each of us, and of course, tailored to our own soul. So, what really, for me, struck out of all of the things that happened in my first degree initiation, and I'm talking about the first degree initiation, is the smell of the roses, because there's a lot of red roses in that circle, and I remember the smell of the roses, and then the incense as well. I remember that I was totally opened to it, and I was very nervous, but although nervous, whatever happened, which I didn't know what would happen, whatever happened, I was I was really in trust and in a complete open heart about whatever would happen because that's what I wanted. I wanted. I wanted it so bad that I didn't care whatever if there was any danger or anything because we don't know. But I was really trusting. I trusted completely, completely. What about you?
Well, it's very similar in the desire to be initiated into a proper witchcraft tradition. I'll call it a proper witchcraft tradition, and I always thought that it was proper because of the extra education and philosophy and a really quality of people that I saw it at a distance. I didn't know many Alexandrians in my life. I just wasn't around access to them. But I don't think I'd even seen I had not seen the inside of the temple where I would be initiated or end up training and working because it was so private and exclusive. Like, it just the door was not opened for so that you could look in there to anyone, and you do have a lot of nervousness about it. I certainly had butterflies in my stomach, and I was prepared, and I had had my bath, and I had brought the right things, and I had meditated on the event and, fasted. People don't even realize that, but you really do want to come spiritually clean and prepared for a big event, and I already had maybe you had too. I had already built a relationship with witchcraft deities on my own because I practiced alone my own version of witchcraft for 25 years because I went to some public events and I had friends that dabbled in some different things, but I didn't find something that was right for me, so I just worked alone. So I trusted in those relationships with the deities primarily and my own spirit guides that I felt they're going to take care of me and they're not going to lead me into a snake pit. I hoped they were not leading me into a snake pit. And it was a combination of fear and excitement and the unknown, the unexpected, and I've said before, you can read about it a little bit in books or online, what people experienced, but there's nothing that prepares you for the psychic experience of a good initiation. I was thinking about this today too. There's some stories, old stories about Alex and Maxine's temple that they initiated a lot of people. We know that, right? In the London years, they initiated a lot of people. And there are stories where sometimes it was a little sloppy, or they were in a hurry, or there were several people at once. And yet, later, talking to those initiated individuals, it was the most important thing ever that had happened to them in their life, which means that something big happens on the inside, right? In another dimension.
It is true. There is a connection that cannot be denied. And the experience itself, as you, I have been practicing eclectic, of course. We call it eclectic because it's not, it really isn't initiatory.
Right.
But as you, I have been practicing for almost 15 years prior.
Right.
I didn't really do a lot. I dabbled in Druidism, but then I returned to what was available at the time, which was obviously the books that we know about. And I gathered with some other people of the same of the same love for the gods and the craft and the magic, and tried to do my best, reading every word and read it again and again and again to really get the most of it. And of course, you never do. But the thing is that when I went through the initiation, and I thought I have so much experience because 15 years of experience, it's a lot, and you as well. But nothing prepares you. Even if you had read the rite, let's just say that somebody actually handed you the rite and say, hey, this is the rite of initiation. It doesn't matter because it's an experience. It's an experience that you cannot predict. And there is a connection that it's made. That's the mystery, isn't it? That the connection is made, and you really can't tell afterwards to what. Is it to the gods? Is it to the egregore of the Alexandrian tradition? Is it to ourselves? Is it through love and vocation? What is it really? And you don't really you can't really explain how, but you do have this sense of revelation, of connection, of transformation. That is what I know, what I knew at the time. And then, of course, with years doing that to others, because both of us had done to others and helped others to come in, we know a little bit more about it. We know a little bit more, perhaps, about, but still, it's still a mystery to me, isn't it? It's still a mystery to you.
Well, that's the occult, right? It's hidden in plain sight. You can write about it, read about it, see the temples, see ancient Egypt and Greece and Rome and Stonehenge, and Avebury. We've walked among the places that had the rites thousands of years ago, and you can read all about it. But it's on the inner planes, it's in the psychic dimension, it's in another world that the occult knowledge really rests. It's, I think, truth, it's metaphysical truth. It should help us understand the structure of the universe, man's role in the universe, the truth of how we're really built and how we function. We are a psychic being. We are an energetic being. I think we are naturally magical creatures. We have intention, will, imagination, direction of our will out into the world, out into the physical world. I mean, it's really uncanny to see what humans have produced and created, not just magically, but from an idea, the telephone or electricity. And then here it is where we turn on the switch and or sign up together to do a podcast on the internet, right? So we're really a remarkable creature. And then there is a lot of training in the occult. I really stand by that. I appreciate that people don't always have access to teachers and they read books and they do the best they can on their own. I really admire that. I certainly admire devotion. You can always show up and be devoted to the universe, to the gods, to the energies, to nature. You can be thankful for your life every day and make effort in that way. And then someone trained when you finally find some people trained in these things and they know the mechanisms used, and they're similar. They're similar through time. There's some physical structure and restriction so that your regular senses are not in control. You're losing sense of space and time in the ritual because of the way that it's set up and the way that you're handled physically. A lot is being given to you verbally and outside of you in that magical space. You can't see it yet, but there's a tremendous amount of work being done in that ritual around the initiate by people who are trained and practice it under the tutelage of a high priest or high priestess. In our tradition, the first degrees practice everything, right? They're right there in the middle of everything. They're not forbidden. Oh, you can't do this. You can't see that. No, we really do the work. That's how you get the training. And so there's a structure to it to push your consciousness into another realm so that you experience initiation in the magical realm or the energetic realm. And that's where you and I have talked about, we have the unusual feelings, the sense of losing time and space, and my feet still on the ground. I'm experiencing and sensing the gods and all these other things through my other faculties. And it's profound. There's no explanation for it. I mean, there is an explanation for it, but there's no way around it. It's profound, it's real. And I've likened it to the shamanic journeys in the ancient times that we've talked about, the Eleusinian mysteries where you're going into the deep dark, you're presented certain things to look at that you're gonna cause you to have recognition of philosophic truths. We don't know exactly all the details of the physical structure of those initiations, but they probably all have some things very similar to our own initiation. And
It's
so
very yeah.
it occurs on the inner, it occurs in a psychic way. Of course, it is also manifesting in the physical. You come back into your body and thankfully giving something to eat and drink because you need it. You need to be grounded. You starving, you haven't eaten all day long.
I have talked about this before. When we are initiated, we really don't have the script. So it's totally, and of course, we don't know what's going to happen. And even if we did, again, it wouldn't matter because the experience is very much tailored to the individual soul. When we go back and we look at the ritual afterwards, you go through the script. So you actually look at the script. You're actually going to copy that script. And there's a lot. I mean, I remember that I was looking at it and I thought, I don't remember this part, or I don't remember that part. And of course, it was done, but but you don't remember. And then, so there's parts of it that you really go into this altered state of consciousness that you actually do not remember what happened. And there are gaps in this experience, which are naturally so because you need that. You need that. It means that it's working. It means that it actually happened. It means that it is really what it's doing, what it's supposed to do. But the other thing that I think that it's very interesting as well is that that happened to me in other things like rituals, for instance, uh, Sabbats and things like that. There are certain Sabbats that I don't remember parts of it as well. So that means that the mind just leaves the conscious and accesses the subconscious, and then you just don't remember that part. It's just so interesting. Did this happen to you? I mean, did you remember everything or?
Absolutely not. Like you said, when you're kind of coming to after the main ritual and you're getting that bite to eat and that sip of wine, and you see your fellow witches around you, and you finally see the temple and the candles and the roses, and you smell the incense, of course. There's many things that you're given in your senses to bring you to this altered state. And of course, you copy the ritual, you read it, and you intellectualize it. But it was probably maybe 6 months or 7 months after I was initiated that a new person came into the coven, and I saw the initiation right from beginning to end, and I was so surprised. I said, "Oh my god, look at how they're doing it this way, or look at that motion, or look at where they are now in this." And it really I was gonna say too, we every initiation after that I helped perform on others was unique and different. Their soul is going to show up. You're going to see their energy field, their aura, where they need support, where they're strong. It's just such a unique event. It really is. And I've never seen one exactly the same. Everyone's been different energetically. I learn something new every time I see one. And in ritual, I think what's great about a good magical initiation is you're opening a room in your own soul, in your own psychic mind that creates space to hold the gods, hold the rituals, and hold these higher level experiences. And like you said, and maybe a regular Sabbath, and you're the god or the goddess, or you're working the altar, and so you work yourself into this state of accepting and experiencing the god forms and that seasonal energetic ritual, which is what we're doing on a Sabbath. and something transforms, something takes over, sometimes stronger than other times. It's not always exactly the same, but there have been times where I don't remember, and people have said, "That was the most magnificent work I've ever seen from you, Ellie." And I'm like, "Well, good, it wasn't me. It was something else. I'm glad it was good for you because I'm just tired and I need a glass of wine, and I'm glad it was good."
It's a wonderful thing to remember because what we most remember, I think, it's the smells and the noises, the because that's the only thing you can smell and you can hear. You can't see. And for me, still today, I have kept some of the petals of the initiation roses from my first degree. And they're still smell good. And it takes me into that, which is the moment that was so important to me. When we go into this, regardless of the circumstances that brought us here, if we are here, it's because we're needed to be here. And we had done something. I mean, sometimes you think about the consequences of initiation. Some people actually are initiated and they just don't stay in the craft, actually. What I've learned about this is that they just needed that push to go somewhere else, and that's okay as well. So, just because one is initiated into witchcraft doesn't mean that we have to stay in witchcraft. I mean, mm, we always ask from the initiates to look for when we're accepting people for initiation and we're considering for vocation. That's the first thing that you first and the most important one is to really understand if the person has vocation for it, because nothing will sustain their place in the craft if they don't have vocation for it. And of course, if they do, then they will stay. They will do the work. They will invest in this development of their own soul and their own spirit. But those who do not, and sometimes there are those who really have a wonderful passion for it, but they don't really have the vocation. Sometimes they go away, and that's okay as well. Some people, I think, it really, they see this as a mistake, and it isn't a mistake. It's actually something that has to be done, and it was done with a purpose. We might be not privy to the purpose of it, really, the bigger purpose, but sometimes that happens, and that person had the opportunity to be initiated, then they went away. But they needed that. They needed that to find either another path or to find themselves or to be a little bit more conscious about their own spirituality. And that's enough. That's enough. Not all of us need to be into covens and doing all of these things and work. Some of us do, and that's okay, but some of us don't. And that's okay as well, I think.
I've heard this idea, I haven't really heard people talking about it, that maybe an initiation doesn't take. What is that about? Is it because the initiators aren't really well trained? Is it because the initiated isn't, their soul isn't really ready for that? Maybe their ego wants it, but their soul is not ready for it? What's your take on if an initiation sticks or not? And is that what you're talking about when you're saying maybe they end up not staying because it turns out to not be the right path for them?
I always think that it will take. I don't think that there's no not the ritual is the structure of it is really well done.
Mhm.
It's and it doesn't matter if it was based on this or that or the other thing. It really is a mechanism, a ritual mechanism that really will trigger what has to trigger, and it will work. Sometimes, if the initiators are lacking of ability for some reason, sometimes it happens, it still works. So I think that there is not taken or not taken. And I understand what you're saying because I have heard it years and years and years. Oh, we didn't take, or we take, or we took, it took like a year to take, or 6 months, or 3 months. I think that's not really what we're talking about. It's not about the initiation, but the transformation in the consciousness of the initiate. That's what we're talking about. So it really isn't about the initiation that takes or not takes. It really is about the evolution or the transformation of the spirit of the initiate. And sometimes it does take time. It isn't immediate. Initiations, when you come out of them, you don't really kind of like there's no more knowledge or more wisdom or more it reminds me years ago somebody was initiated into third degree and then turned immediately to the initiator and says, now you must reveal to me all of the secrets of the universe. And of course there's no secrets of the universe, but it's a really very interesting thing that people are looking for things outside. They're looking for things from the outside. Now you must reveal to me all of the mysteries of the universe, which sounds like a Marvel line, but it really isn't. It was said. And of course, the teacher looked at this person and almost regretted. That's,
I bet.
that's you know? But the thing is that it doesn't matter because the pause, there was no answer, but the pause was essential. And then, of course, you would say, there are no mysteries. You are the mystery.
I was
So
going to
figure
say
that one out. I think that there is a period of transformation or of open of consciousness to a couple of things that really are important. And the initiate test, not everyone has that time. It's not there's not a timetable for that. So it's really tailored to their own rhythm, to their own soul, to their own experience. And yes, so I find that actually a little bit egotistical of the teacher to say, "Oh, that take or it didn't take," because it's not about us. It's
Mhm.
about the other who was initiated. So they will take their own time. They will take their own time. Saying that, it's actually not taking into account that this is a transformation of the individual soul. We must wait for the revelation that comes from the inside out.
I always think about it in layers through lifetimes because I really do believe in reincarnation, and I believe occultists, witches, and ritual magicians, and druids, and all the other myriad of shamans, people studying the magical arts and the psychic arts in time immemorial are attracted to it again in the next life, and they can't wait to get back into it and learn and grow and see the people and talk about it again. So I always remind myself, now you don't have to get it all done in this lifetime. Just relax. You've done a lot in the past. You're learning a lot of new things now. You'll continue to grow in your next lifetime. Don't get so worried about it. A great thing for me that I experienced after initiation was, I'm a big thinker with my philosophy degree. I'm a structured thinker and observer, and I want to build these boxes and get the data and put it in these boxes and build the whole castle and see the big picture. After my initiation, something kind of broke free in me where I had more experience of something magical, energetically, and I didn't have to try to define it or box it in so quickly.
So there was an awakening of the consciousness of
Mhm.
self and of what that would do and the purpose of it. Was it really necessary right away? It wasn't for you. And okay, so I'm not putting this in a box right just now. I'm just gonna wait and savor it, and then later on I will put it back in a little box again.
Of course, I did put it in boxes for later, but yeah, but the actual feeling of it or the experience working in a coven, because when you don't have a group, ritual magic group is different than coven. Coven is very intimate and physically energetic. You're moving around, you're dancing, you all have your gestures and your places. It's active. You're not sitting in chairs. You're actively working the temple. You're working the altar. You're in that magical space. And when you step in with your fellow trained witches, something transforms there, right? So I really got to experience that psychically often. We all would agree, sometimes it's flat. Sometimes the power is unbelievable and the candles all go out and the cold air comes in, or you see a physical manifestation of something and people say, "Oh, that's silly. That's not really true." No, it is really true. And there is evidence that some really big shifts occur magically, and it does happen on the physical plane, not just in your psychic eye. So to experience in a way, not just by myself, because I certainly had those things by myself, but that were collective, that we all agreed. Did you see that column of gold light that came in over on the right? And it was so tall, it went through the ceiling and it was radiating, and we all look over there and we're like, "What is that thing?" We all see it, we all feel it. It was just that the experience of it, but not the intellectualizing of it. The actual experience of it was so great, so many times, and for another day, we can talk about power, but the power and the sincerity of the witches. I really go back to that. You can tell in a room who's there for what reason. You really can. And it's unfortunate that there are people in the room in the coven space that are not there for the same reason. Some people really want the ecstatic experience. They love the worship. I love the worship and the connection with the gods. And then some people are there because it's their theater or their ego room or their controller boss room. And maybe that's where I just remind myself that's where they are in this lifetime. That's what they're working on.
Well, I always say this, you only get from the craft. Well, I always say this. This was not my line. I actually it was Alex's line. You only get from the craft what you put in. So it really is, if that's the thing, if that's where what they are, then they will get what as much as they put in. So I always say, to each their own level, and this is not mine either. It's from Maxine. I think what it's important here is really to understand that this is a unique experience. It is really very tailored to the individual soul. It really is something that you can't really describe it in words. It's an experience. And it's an experience that it's one in a lifetime. Um, then we can go into this other thing, which is several initiations, that some people have more than one initiation in the same degree in different traditions or in different, things. And they keep getting more and more and more and more. Which I think that it's very interesting because it looks like they're looking for something that they're not finding anywhere. If you are initiated into something, and I have love for some other traditions. Well, I should say one. I have love for other paths, occult paths, but don't have time for that in this lifetime. So I'm just gonna put that into my pocket and reach out on the next life and see if it is still there. But you need to understand this. There's a lot of people that go through. I really have a hard time to understand how they can appreciate all of that and have any results, because I think it's such a unique and strong experience that I don't understand why do we need more than one. I mean, of course we have more than one because we have three um, degrees and of course three initiations. And that's very important to mention as well. But what I mean is like in different currents, in
Right.
different
Right.
things.
Let's sort of look at it in an umbrella sense. In the Western mystery tradition or Western esoteric tradition, there's a lot of philosophic umbrella there. There's a mathematical physics structure, philosophic structure. A lot of it's based on Kabbalah studies or Hermetic writing from 300 AD Alexandria, compilation of ancient Pythagorean and Greek and Egyptian philosophy, temple building, Freemasonry came from that, Rosicrucianism came from that, Theosophy partially came from that. And then the things like the Golden Dawn, sort of just continued on that work, and to me, that's an umbrella structure. It's like going into a library and saying, "Alright, this library is the Western mystery tradition, and here are the shelves of the particulars." It doesn't mean any of those are religions, and they certainly don't have to be taken on as a religion. Some of it, you might just want to learn it as philosophy because it helps you understand how the universe works. I also believe you can do magic and not have a religion, that you can learn to operate the energy waves and be manifest more of what your will desires than not. It is a mechanical training, you can do it. I think it's probably more effective when you combine it with religion because then you have devotion to the powers that are aiding you. I do believe the gods are real, and I think they're not just part of our psychology. So I think for us in our Alexandrian training, it is a religion. You are brought in by priesthood into a religion that also contains all the Western mystery teachings, the philosophy, the hermetics, the magical training, very specifically. But for me, primarily, it was the opportunity to have religion, religio, to link man to God. You want some structure for that. And then from that basis, the worship, as Maxine says, comes the magic, and other things flow out from that. So it doesn't bother me to study in a school or study in a tradition. I think what is harder on our psyche is when we cross over currents, maybe to the African traditions or the South American native traditions or the Eastern way. And there's so many paths in the Eastern esoteric umbrella library. I can't imagine tackling all that in one lifetime. Theosophy bridged the gap a bit. Blavatsky went all over the Orient and Tibet, and then also in the Western world, and really should be more credited, I think, to bridging that and bringing the Eastern ideas over to the West, and then we kind of relabeled, or we have our own similar philosophy, but we kind of made sense out of it when we could see both side by side. So I think that was very important.
It's a very interesting way of looking at it is that all of us, I mean, even Alex and Maxine did that. They did this experimenting with what they had, and then they changed things consciously. Because we have to say this, they did change things consciously, meaning with a purpose.
Right.
They didn't just change it because they didn't understand them. They first understood them and then they changed them because they thought this is let's and then they changed it not because it wasn't just right away, oh let's change this to this. They tested it and then when it actually revealed true and yield some results, not some results, results, then they change it and established what we call now, and I think that Blavatsky was doing the same thing. She was looking for a structure.
I think great occultists build on the shoulders of those coming before them. There's always this stacking quality. You're learning and growing and building and learning and growing and building. It's a pyramid. You're always going up. And I look at Alex and Maxine really as very serious, brilliant practitioners who received their foundations, however they did, in different ways. We know from their life stories. They came together and built together in what they both knew and learned and practiced and experimented. It's Gardnerian in its foundations, but it's adapted, you and I would say, into more sophisticated or more hermetically thought out advancements. When they're sincere and they're working their rituals in their temples, I'm sure it's absolutely as powerful and magnificent as what we accomplish. It's just a little different way.
Oh yes, it is. It is a different way. It's very different. There are people who disagree with me immediately. Oh, it's not that different. But it all depends of the references that we have, and of course, this is a mystery tradition, and it's practiced in secret and privately, and we don't really know what everyone is doing at the same time. So we're not going around and seeing everybody's ritual. So and because every coven is independent, either or in our journal Gardnerian, so we do have this thing that we think that we, oh, it's very different. In my experience, from what I have been practicing all these years and the teachings that I have received, Gardnerian practice is very different from ours, philosophically and also practically. In ceremony is very different. Of course, we have things that are similar, or some of the things are exactly the same, but that doesn't mean that it's exactly the same. Just because we have a couple of things that are the same doesn't make it the same, because the intention and how we do things is different, and the philosophy behind it is different. Everything is really built differently in philosophy from Alexander to Gardner. So
At the training of that Gardnerian coven maybe that you saw and that Alexandrian
yes,
coven?
yes. So it depends on everything, really. Depends on
Right,
anything.
they're
Yes.
surprisingly can be very different even in the single tradition depending on where what time period someone was trained and how they adapted or modified on their own, whether that was right or not, but it often happens, and then it just gets to be, something looking a little different, but
Right. Yes.
hopefully the foundations are there, though. That's what I really was attracted to Alexandrian witchcraft for, is the philosophy and the depth of study in the philosophy was really speaking to me. I thought, "Well, there's enough meat on the bone for me."